Here's a story you haven't heard yet. It's the kind of thing that makes you want to lock every door, close every curtain, and maybe even move to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. About 6 months ago, I was looking for some extra cash, and I found this listing on a very legitimate-looking house-sitting website. The job seemed perfect. A beautiful, modern home in a quiet, upscale suburb. The owners, a couple named Mark and Elena, were traveling through Europe for 3 months. They didn't want a stranger in their house, but they needed someone reliable to water the plants, collect the mail, and make sure the security system stayed active. I had great reviews, they had a high-end property, and it felt like a win-win. We communicated entirely through email. They were polite, professional, and very specific about the rules. No parties, no guests, and just follow the routine. I remember thinking how lucky I was. I packed my bags, drove out to this stunning, minimalist house, and walked in feeling like I had just won the lottery. The place was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive art, and a silence so heavy it felt expensive. I spent the first 2 days just settling in, enjoying the peace. But on the third night, things started to feel off. It wasn't a sound or a shadow. It was a feeling. That prickle on the back of your neck that tells you you're being watched. I tried to brush it off. I told myself it was just the transition to a new environment. But then, I noticed the lights. Every time I walked into a room, the smart lighting would adjust, but it felt too fast. Too reactive. Like it wasn't just sensing motion, but tracking me. I decided to do a little deep clean of the living area, just to make myself feel more at home. As I was dusting a bookshelf near the media console, I saw it. A tiny, pin-sized glint of light reflecting off a piece of polished wood. It was tucked inside a decorative knot in the wood grain. My heart actually skipped a beat. I didn't think anything of it at first. I thought maybe it was just a high-end security camera, which wouldn't be weird for a house this expensive. But then I looked closer. It wasn't a standard camera lens. It was a lens so small it looked like a speck of dust. I sat there on the floor, my hands shaking, staring at that little hole. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I told myself, okay, maybe they just want to make sure you're actually there. Maybe it's for insurance. But the curiosity, or maybe the fear, drove me to look further. I went into the kitchen. I looked at the smoke detector. I looked at the clock on the wall. I looked at the little vent in the ceiling. And that's when I saw the second one. This one was much more obvious, hidden inside the eye of a decorative ceramic owl on the mantel. I wasn't just being watched by a security system. I was being watched by something much more intimate. I felt sick. I felt violated in a way I can't even describe. It was like the walls themselves had eyes. I spent the next 4 hours in a state of pure, unadulterated panic. I didn't want to call the police because what would I even say? I'm a house sitter and I found cameras? They'd think I was crazy. But I couldn't just stay there. I started a systematic search. I used a specialized app on my phone that detects infrared light, something I'd read about once in a true crime forum. As I moved through the master bedroom, the screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Every corner, every vent, every piece of art. There were dozens of them. They weren't just in the common areas. They were in the bedroom. They were in the bathroom, hidden behind the mirror. They were even tucked into the electrical outlets. This wasn't security. This was voyeurism. This was a setup. I realized then that Mark and Elena weren't just travelers. They were predators. They had used a legitimate platform to find someone who would be alone, isolated, and trusting. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, realizing that every movement I had made since I arrived, every meal I ate, every time I showered, every time I slept, had been recorded and likely streamed to someone, somewhere. I felt like a specimen in a jar. I knew I had to leave, but I was terrified that if I just packed up and ran, they would see me on the feed and realize I knew. I had to be smart. I waited until the next morning, acting completely normal. I watered the plants. I checked the mail. I even sent a polite email to them asking if they needed anything specific. My heart was hammering against my ribs the entire time. I waited until I saw the sun starting to set, and then I grabbed my essentials and bolted. I didn't pack everything. I didn't care about my extra clothes or my books. I just needed to get out. I drove straight to the local police station. When I explained the situation, the officer looked skeptical at first, but when I showed him the photos I had taken of the lenses with my phone's macro lens, his expression changed. He realized I wasn't crazy. They ended up raiding the house 2 days later. It turns out, the cameras weren't just for watching, they were part of a massive, coordinated operation. They were streaming live feeds to a private, subscription-based site. They had done this dozens of times with different house sitters, different Airbnb guests, different people. I was just one of many. The scale of it was stomach-turning. They had an entire server room hidden in a basement compartment that wasn't even on the house blueprints. I still have nightmares about it. I still have this overwhelming urge to check the corners of every room I enter. It changed how I view the world. It changed how I view trust. If you ever find yourself in a situation where a place feels wrong, don't ignore that instinct. Your gut is trying to save you. Please, if you found this story as chilling as I did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the things people try to hide. It really helps the channel grow. I'll see you in the next